You've probably seen these before and thought, that's not a real pull-up. And you're right, they're not. And honestly, I used to think the same way. But once I understood what they are for, I accidentally got a lot more jacked. So today, I'm breaking down one of the most hated exercises on the internet and why it doesn't deserve the hate it gets. I'll show you 5 components of what makes a clean kipping pull-up, how to build them from scratch, and how to cycle reps with rhythm and timing. Fair warning, they're harder than they look, and most of the haters probably couldn't do them if they tried. But if you're willing to give them a go, you'll probably learn to crank out a ton of volume, especially on the eccentric. And you'll learn to snap your whole body like a whip, kind of like throwing a right hook or a baseball. Shut up. The strict pull-up is about strength, but the kipping pull-up is about rhythm, timing, and coordination. Think of your body like a metronome. You need to swing back and forth on the beat and then redirect the energy upward on exactly the right note. If you rush it or miss the beat, everything falls apart. So you have to learn the rhythm to be able to achieve the height. It's the difference between listening to this and this. But to bring it together, here are the 5 key components. 1. The hollow and arch positions. These are your home base for all gymnastics movements. 2. The kip swing, using your hollow and arch to create rhythm. 3. The hip drive, turning your kip swing into vertical lift. 4. The finish, controlling the top once you've created your lift. And 5. The recycle, linking your next rep while keeping your timing and shapes. Okay, these get done to death, and I know you think you know what these shapes are. But don't skip past this section because I still see people every day who think they know how to arch and hollow but are still getting them kind of wrong. And these shapes are the same shapes we make when we're on the rig.
Hello, princess.
We need a few ingredients for a correct hollow body. We need to crunch our ribs down toward our pelvis. And we also need to crunch the pelvis toward the ribs. We need squeezy quads and squeezy glutes so that everything in the bottom half is tight. We also need to shrug and get the biceps right up by the ears so that the whole body is tense the entire way through. So we crunch, we tuck, we squeeze, we shrug, we hold. Our arch position also needs to be tight the whole way through. So you're going to squeeze your heels together, straighten your legs, squeeze your bum, and that should pull the whole lower body off the ground. We are not bending at the knees. For the upper body, we're lying on the ground, we're lifting our wristwatches to the sky, and we're adding a small lift of the sternum to engage the rest of the middle back. This is different to the arch shape that most people will give you, which is just cranking through the lower back. This is not an arch shape. This does not involve nearly as much musculature as it should. And this arch shape, coupled with this hollow shape, is going to give you way more power in your kip swing. Now, these shapes might feel obvious when we're on the floor, but a lot of people lose them as soon as we get on the rig. So let's look at how we can maintain them as soon as we jump up to the bar. The kip swing is like the tempo of a song. You need that steady beat before you can layer anything on top. No rhythm, no pull-up. We want these shapes to look the same on the rig as they did on the floor. We still need ribs in, we still need pelvis under, we still need squeezy legs. And let's look at the arch. We're still squeezing the legs, glutes are on, and we're pulling the wristwatches toward the back of the room. In our kip swing, we maintain these positions as we tick-tock between the arch and the hollow. And 90% of the movement is driven by the whip between these two positions. And all we need to add on top is a little bit of pressure down into the bar. The shoulders help us contribute the last 10% of power into the kip swing. That gives us just enough activity in the shoulders so that you're not flopping around in the kip swing without believing that we're driving the whole thing from the shoulders, which would be underrating how important that exchange in position is for producing force. Make no mistake, the shoulders do not drive most of the power in the kip swing. This does. The shoulders are there to finish the movement and maintain tension. The biceps should be covering the ears the whole time, which tells us that we're maintaining a good amount of the shrug. One of my favorite rules here is that shoulders and toes should always oppose, meaning if my shoulders are behind the rig, my toes should be out the front, and if my shoulders are in front of the rig, my toes should be behind. In a kip swing, you have to stay on beat. Maintaining a rhythm is vital to producing good power in your kip swing and in your kipping pull-up. We can practice maintaining tension in the kip swing by adding bands at the hollow position or at the heels in the arch position to maintain tension in both shapes. In the hollow banded kip swing, we want to set this to the height of the bra strap once you're hanging. So I'm going to turn around and jump up. and I'm going to think about doing my kip swing and push into the band to stretch it with my back. That's going to help me think about pushing back in that kind of bra strap position, which will help me pull my ribs in. Let's have a look. And I always stuff this up. Now we set up the same drill, but we're driving into the band with our heels. This is going to reinforce the tension in the legs, the hamstrings, and the glutes in our arch. So it's going to look exactly the same in terms of the setup. Start from the dead hang, pull to hollow, drive. Oh, that band's sharp. That band's a bit too tight. I need the red one. Now that you understand the shapes and timing of the kip swing, let's see how we can use the same whipping mechanic to create the height in the pull-up. Speaking of whipping, let me whip your CrossFit programming into shape. I run weekly gymnastics programming for CrossFit gyms that don't want to write it themselves. It's plug and play, and it also includes coaching resources for every movement. So even your newest coach can stick the landing. Click here to start your free trial. Right, so back to pull-ups. Every other time you've done hip extension, your feet have been on the floor. Think snatch, deadlift, kettlebell swing. It's a lot harder when you don't have the floor there for feedback, and most people are not very good at it. You also have to stay tight in the hollow while extending your hips, which is way harder without feedback from the floor. And finally, both of those things have to happen at the right time. And if they don't, you'll make a mess of your reps. Longer, straighter legs are actually easier here. They generate a lot more power. Let's look at some drills to help you understand the hip pop mechanic. We're going to start with the banded pull-up, which I don't think is broadly useful, but it can help bridge the gap between not being able to hip hop and understanding that you can push down into the air to create the elevation. Set yourself up in a band in the same position as you would for your kipping pull-up. So one step behind the rig. As we jump up, we want to catch the rig, pull the ribs and hips back, and glide through into the arch. As the toes elevate, you're then going to push down into the band, which will extend the hips for you, and that will help you feel that hip pop mechanic, and you'll get a little bit of a float. It'll look like this. Push down into the band, push down, and it'll give you a sense of the timing. Now, this is quite a thin band. I would use something slightly thicker than this, but you don't want to go too thick because it'll launch you into the roof. In our second drill, we are using a cone, or if you don't have access to a cone, grab someone's sparkly Frank Green water bottle, Stanley Cup, whatever. Put it a couple of meters in front of the rig. I like around 3 meters for someone my height, maybe a little more if you're taller. When I do this, I'm going to jump up, do my kipping pull-up, and in my line of sight, my toes are going to rise to the height of the cone in my vision. And once I reach this level of closure at the hip, that's when I'm going to squeeze my hips open. I need to feel that tension in the glute, that squeeze here, the same as I feel it in my arch position. So if you didn't feel it in the arch, you need to go back and refine your tension in those positions so that you can understand this more easily. So same thing, I'm setting up, I'm just one step behind the bar, jump up in hollow, swing to arch, find the cone, pop, cone. And that provides the timing of my hip extension. This last one is our crescendo pull-up. Crescendo is just any time you go from quieter to louder or smaller to larger. So we're jumping up, we're starting with a tiny little pull-up, not quite getting our chin over the bar. So we're going to go bottom quarter, halfway, 3/4, and then a full pull-up. Now you've seen how we create elevation. Let's talk about what happens at the top. Everyone thinks the kipping pull-up is all momentum, but we actually need strict strength to finish the pull to the top. You want to arrive at the top looking like you're meant to be there. Chin over the bar, shoulder blades pulled down, core still switched on, shoulders slightly back. Not shoulders up by your ears, kicking and trying to get there. Momentum will only get you so far. Let's look at some drills that focus on strength at the top of the pull. You can build strength at the top by practicing holds at the top. And if you want, you can use a band to help you out to hold for longer. If you want more resources for strict pull-ups, check out my video here, or a link to a free program to get your first pull-up here. Once you've reached the top, the goal is to come down in time. If you lose your shapes or rhythm, you'll throw everything out of order. We want to land in the hollow and swing through to arch without skipping a beat. If you drop like a stone from the top, you won't be able to drive back into the arch, so you won't be able to recycle into the next rep. Here's what to do instead. We need the shoulders and hips relatively stacked in the hollow body, and we need enough space behind the bar that as we descend, we can reform the arch shape as we go to the bottom. Here are 2 common mistakes to watch out for. If you descend too far away, when you pop back up, it'll feel like you're rowing the bar to your neck. And if you drop too close, you'll jerk down and end up too flat to create an arch. Here are my favorite drills to learn the recycle. The first one is a kip swing into a kipping pull-up, back into a kip swing. This last one is the top-down kipping pull-up. It does require some strength, but honestly, if you're doing the kipping pull-ups, we kind of want you to have that already. So you're starting at the top, and then you're practicing the descent. Remember, we need shoulders and hips stacked, and a little push behind the bar so we can reform the arch at the bottom. So a strict pull up to the top. From the top, descend, come back up, hold, descend, hold. Notice I use my legs to create a little space before we drop down, swinging, controlling the swing, creating space, down, back up. And so we can see that helps me understand how far behind the bar I need to be and how to keep this and this stacked on my way down. These are exactly the types of drills that show up in my affiliate gymnastics program. You can get a sample week here. A kipping pull-up is more than just a shortcut for high rep workouts. It's a skill. And a little bit like learning a new instrument, it's slow, deliberate, and a little awkward at first. But once it clicks and you find that rhythm, it flows. It feels different. In CrossFit, the kipping pull-up is a tool for building high-volume gymnastics and capacity, but it is not a replacement for strict strength. It's a progression all on its own. If your CrossFit gym has a gymnastics class and you like what you saw today, encourage your box owner to check out my affiliate gymnastics program. We use lots of these progressions, and I have a coaches section to help them learn to coach the skills just like this. Let me know in the comments below what drill or movement we should cover next.